to feel like we're behind and failing. And so my encouragement, one, be there on time. And two, there is hope, and it requires risk. And this would be an example of taking a step towards hope. It's not going to fix your world, but there is hope that there's more to it than what you're feeling right now.
Welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Welcome back to the Crucible Project podcast. I am your host for today, Joy Dunning, and I am here with a good friend and coworker, Grayson Ege. So, hey, Grayson, how are you?
I'm doing well, Joy. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So, Grayson, tell us just a little bit about you, a snippet of what life is like for you right now.
Yeah, right now, I am here in Southwest Michigan in the middle of January, so we've seen about 1 day of sun in the last 45 days. But I am here with my lovely bride. We've been married going on 6 years now, and we have two beautiful girls. One is 3 years old, just about, and the other is 8 months old and just started crawling yesterday. So we are a busy household, and we love it here.
On the move.
Yes, constantly.
Well, why don't we just jump right into it? So today we're going to be talking about the impact on Crucible with fathers, and especially you as a young father. But before we get to all of that, let's just start with, how did you even get connected to Crucible? So when did you do your initial retreat, and how did you even find out about us?
Yep. So I completed my initial weekend in 2017, and I would have been a junior in college at that time. In Chicago, Illinois. And ironically, part of why I'm so passionate about making soul work a family practice is because my dad was the one that invited me. And the circumstances that happened, actually, my parents were divorcing. It was a long, kind of messy 6-year process, not because either one had ill will towards each other, just is how it worked. And he had gone on a lot of weekends, a lot of different types of things. And he'd come back and say that he's changed and he learned all these things, but then nothing actually changed. And it wasn't until he attended the Crucible retreat, and 6 months after that retreat, I saw that he continued to grow and became a lot more aware and was now someone I wanted to be around more. And so when he invited me, I wanted to find out what it was about.
So when was that? When did you go?
2017.
Okay. We all have that friend who's like, you should go do this, or, the parent who says you should do this. And no matter how persistent they can be, it usually takes something in you saying, I should do this, to want to go. So what was happening in life at the time, if you can remember back then, that caused you to say yes?
It is a great question. Obviously, life looked very different as a junior in college than now. And, when people ask me that, I tell them, I think the reason that I went, looking back on it, I didn't have anyone in my life, specifically as a male figure, that I wanted to be like or who reflected the kind of person I wanted to become. It was a lot of success and fame, but then they had a terrible relationship with their family and their family didn't want to be around them. Or it could have been vice versa, where maybe their family did want to be around them, but they were just failing at work or they were doing something that they hated and you could just see it drain the life from them. And I thought that maybe there's more out there. And so looking back at it, I just wanted to find some kind of role model that could support me or show me a way.
Well, it sounds like you got some of that in your dad after he went on his retreat, but did you find what you were looking for?
It didn't happen all right away, but just being on a weekend with men of all ages. Some could have been doctors and some, could have been in totally other positions and you just didn't know. And so to see them show up in vulnerability and to do things that might feel risky or explore things that could be scary, it gave me a lot of courage that there are good men out in the world to be with.
No, I like what you're saying. men being willing to do things that might be risky. A lot of times when you hear that, you think of like skydiving or like actual physical, like adventure challenges. And what does it look like to be risky in a room with other guys and share from your heart? And for me, in a room with other women, and trying to let down the pretense of what are they going to think of me, and what might the repercussions be if I say the wrong thing, and just kind of say, I need to show up with who I am.
Yeah,
that's risky.
It is risky. And, what I've found is it's more so exploring what feels like frontier for us. Because for some, the most risky thing could be an adventure. They've lived their life in a very safe way.
Right.
And they haven't put themselves in a physical challenge that's like, wow, a lot's going to be asked of me. But maybe they do feel really safe in sharing for whatever reason, or vice versa. So I think that's what I've enjoyed is courage could come from all sorts of places, but collectively we're exploring what feels like frontier and what is the invitation to grow in. And that changes season by season.
Yeah. We're going to talk about being a dad and, the impact of Crucible on that. And, your story is that you don't know life as a dad before you went to Crucible, because you've had Crucible knowledge the whole time that you've been a dad. So we talk about being intentional, learning how to make intentional choices. So what does that look like for you and what you've learned from your retreat and the work you've done since?
One of the pillars that as a family we focus on is that we have to be investing into our marriage. So despite busy seasons, despite stress, despite everything, my wife and I have continued to work with the marriage coach. We've been married for 6 years. We have worked with one for 6.5, going on 7 years now. And I could not recommend that more for couples, because the stronger my marriage is with my wife, the better parents that I believe that we can be. And of course, working on a marriage also means working on myself.
Right.
So, but that is continued to be a pillar no matter what financial thing comes up, no matter what life looks like. We have continued to meet regularly and be intentional about that. And I think that's a crucial thing for being a parent and being a leader.
Stepping into a healthy marriage is a gift in and of itself for your kids. You shared that you're from divorced parents, and it's so common. And to be able to model for your kids, not just staying married, but seeking that, enjoying it, wanting to actually form that relationship and that bond that models for your girls what they can start to look for when they grow up is huge. Are there practices that you guys do as a family, or things that you do as a dad that you're like, I don't think I would have known to do this if it wasn't for Crucible?
I can't take credit for this, but I'm gonna tote on my wife for this. So my wife, we're blessed that she can stay at home, and the amount of patience that she shows. And like maybe we're gonna bake some bread today, and Ever's gonna get the flour all over everything, and the kitchen's gonna just be this disaster. My wife's worried, well, Grayson's gonna come home from all this work and everything's gonna be a disaster, and the dinner's not ready, and blah blah blah. She and I just made an agreement that let's let our kids be kids, and let's let them experience things. And yes, it's important to make sure the kitchen stays somewhat cleaned up and that we don't destroy the house so that all the clutter and all the chaos doesn't eat at us. And can we just give these girls permission to just be little girls, right? And take that stress off trying to make dinner happen at the same time, make sure that we have a healthy meal, make sure we are outside enough, make sure TV's not too much enough, right? There's all this pressure to get everything right. And I just love my wife and I are like, says who? So we get flack for it. We might have family that come over and this house is very messy. What's going on? I'm like, well, I chose my kid for the day. And I'm sorry that it bothers you. And there's an invitation that maybe that's more about you than me. But, but so as a pillar, it's my wife and I being on the same page of just like, look, let's take the stress off what we can take the stress off of. And I think that has helped immensely.
I have young kids-ish too. My kids are 11, 8, and 2.5 right now. And one of the things that I have learned in all of these wonderful years of parenting is that my kids are such a mirror for me of the things that I don't like about myself, meaning that they're doing nothing wrong, and I am responding from a place of being frustrated because of a million other things in life, and I'm letting it play out with the way I'm interacting with my kids, and they reflect that right back for me. So what about for you? I mean, I know your kids are young, but what does that look like, and how does your Crucible experience impact the way that you handle yourself throughout the trials? I mean, you're in the trenches of it, so...
We are in the
What's it like
trenches
for
of it.
you?
Yes, to give context, so I'm blessed to be on staff of Crucible, and then I also work another full-time job in sales and have some multiple leadership roles with that. We own a house. We're relatively new homeowners for the last couple of years. We got 2 dogs. Very quickly, it feels like everybody on planet Earth wants or needs something from me. And my reaction to that, and really how I've done most of my life, is, what do you want from me? I have nothing else to give. And my mode has been to withhold whatever additional I have, because if I don't have enough, how can I give it to you? And while there's truth in that, what it allows me to do is check out. I disassociate. I check out. And then all of a sudden, I'm not present. I'm not doing good work. I'm not supporting my wife. And so those are to-dos, but then I'm also not doing things to take care of me, like scheduling walks outside, making sure that I'm eating throughout the day rather than just forcing down a shake because I have no time. And just how am I taking care of myself? And when I start to operate in that mode of everybody always needs something from me, I become like that Greek god Atlas, that just the world's on my back and it's my destiny to hold everybody's responsibility forever. And then I show up out of anger. I become the villain. I'm angry that I'm doing that. And then I become the victim. It's not my fault, all this stuff. And I end up in that triangle, right? Of villain, victim, and hero. And so Crucible has helped give me language to be able to recognize sooner when that happens. When I first got in Crucible, I had this audacious thought that if I learned everything, then I could prevent anything bad from happening and I could just be like an A+ person all the time, which is ridiculous. And in hindsight now, what I appreciate is, rather than being stuck for months, maybe that timeline now is within a couple of days. I could recognize it when it's happening in the moment and not quite be stuck with that the whole time, right? Language is one, but then also having men that I can be vulnerable with and take accountability for and share what happened without feeling like I'm just going to be given advice or be told what to do, or, well, that's just how life is, or, whatever the response might be. I can call 10+ guys that would listen and validate or challenge, whatever it might be. And I think that's probably the most powerful thing that I've had from Crucible, is having men like that in my life. It drives me crazy. And I also appreciate it so much. The wisest people in my life typically don't give me advice, but they ask questions. It's like an open-ended question to go reflect on. And I'm like, no, I want the answer. I'm not trying to figure out the problem. I just want the answer. And I appreciate how they invite me to actually reflect and to mull over something that takes time and energy, and I appreciate that. We've started to ask my girls more questions. Well, why do you think that? Why is that? Rather than just telling or showing. It's more of an invitation than anything else.
What a great life lesson or life teacher to have.
Yes.
Grayson, let me paint a little word picture here. Imagine, if you will, you are home by yourself, your wife is out, and you have those 2 dogs who are just barking nonstop. One wants to go out and chase a squirrel, and the other one, who knows?
The other one taking my toddler's favorite stuffed animal.
Yes. And so the toddler's screaming about the dog taking her stuffed animal. The baby is crying and needs a diaper change. The doorbell is ringing, and the weight of the world is on your shoulders in this moment. Everybody needs your attention right now. What do you do? How do you handle that?
Utter chaos is what that is. When I respond poorly and when I respond well are so different. And when I respond poorly, I get angry. I get so angry, right? Because I have no control over what is going on. And I want everyone just to be quiet, to behave, to do what they're told. So I could be really angry. And sometimes, I yell. And I can, I had a situation the other day where I yelled and my toddler just got so scared and cried. Like I was just saying, part of me is like, well, if I can just learn all the right things, then I can prevent bad things from happening. But what I'm learning instead is that there's opportunity for repair to happen in that moment. And when the long, big T or little t trauma, however you want to phrase it, happens, is when there is no repair. So I have incorporated a lot of I'm sorries, even to the baby who has no idea what I'm saying. Just, Isla, I'm sorry that I was wrong. I was upset and I'm sorry. Or going to Everett, Daddy was angry and he yelled and he's angry, not at you, but at this, and I'm sorry. And so just starting to learn how to repair relationship rather than just pass it along, because Ever's not going to come back to me later and say, Dad, I was really angry that you yelled at me, because she's 3.
Right.
She doesn't have language to do that. And so my hope is by leading by example, I can show them what repair looks like when things go bad, because they will go bad.
Yeah.
On the other side, when I recognize it in the moment, ironically, laughing has helped a lot, where I just start laughing at how ridiculously chaotic everything is, because I have no other way to make sense of it, right? I'm not happy it's going on, not excited it's going on, but it's like at some point in my life, and I would hate when people would tell me this, but I'm finding it's true. At some point in my life, I'm going to miss it. Because when my house is empty for the night, or maybe the girls are away at the grandparents' house, I miss that.
Yeah.
And so just recognizing that good things aren't easy, and that there's invitation to even enjoy that in the chaos, which is crazy to say, but it's what I'm slowly learning.
It's hard to imagine a day when the house is quiet right now. But someone told me once that it's going to happen. The day will come.
You know, it was so funny. I had a coaching call the other day, and we were trying to figure out, how can I fit 15 minutes of quiet in? And so we start talking like, well, could you wake up earlier? I'm like, well, you don't understand. My toddler knows when I wake up, even if I don't make any noise. It doesn't matter if it's 4:30 or if it's 5 or if it's 7 or if it's 8, she knows. So I think to answer your question, that was the chaotic situation. And I heard this phrase the other day, and I think it's really helpful. They were talking to a paramedic, and what the paramedic was saying is, during crisis, we don't rise to our aspirations. We fall to our level of preparation, with the idea that if I'm not actively taking care of myself, taking care of, our marriage, investing in myself, making sure I'm taking my walks, that I'm praying, that I'm spending time in silence, I will erupt significantly more, because I'm not well, because I'm trying to live on my own instead of drawing life from God. That, I think, has been a significant shift. It doesn't, again, mean everything's going to be okay, but that has been huge for me.
I had a counselor once tell me that just deciding you're not going to be like XYZ isn't enough, because you're going to repeat what you know.
Right.
And so sit down, everybody be quiet, stop talking. There's life past that. And it's not enough to just say, I'm not going to be that way with my kids. Because unless you do intentional steps to change the narrative, you will. It's the default. It's just what you know.
Well, just to tie in what I was saying, like my phrase is, I have nothing left to give. What do you want from me? As the oldest child, I did most of my life by making sure I checked all the boxes so that I would be left alone. Because at least how my family dynamic was, if Grayson was doing well, everybody else was doing well. If Grayson wasn't doing well, it affected the whole family. So I was the affect regulation of the entire family. So of course it makes sense that today when things are being asked of me and I'm not doing okay, it's like, just leave me alone. Because that's the pattern that I have lived in since I was 5 or whatever, whenever that first came online.
Yeah, and it sounds like part of you, at least, is still that affect regulation with your 3-year-old when it comes to wake up time. So
right. The difference now is that I'm 28 and I can understand things versus, when obviously you're 5, it's there's no effect. So
yeah, absolutely.
No reasoning.
We've talked about some of how your Crucible knowledge has impacted the choices you've made so far in your parenting, but like we've identified, you and I are both young compared to people who have been parenting for 15, 20, 30 years, and the knowledge that we'll have then compared to the knowledge that we have now. What are you thinking as you look ahead to the future and what life might have for you?
Yeah, I think regardless of age of children or how old we are, another thing Crucible taught me is to reflect, is to examine how life has been, and to not just look forward with rose-colored lenses like everything's going to change. So there was another quote that I heard: mental health is facing reality at any cost. And so part of that is, I love Christmas time to New Year's time, but I've established this process I've done to reflect on the year, to reflect on the calendar year, to actually look at pictures of what happened over the last 12 months, what emotions come up around that, what are my positive reactions, what maybe do I cringe about, what were the losses, what were the celebrations, whatever it may be, and just begin to look for themes and for patterns and what is going on. And that has given me so much life, but also convicted me. So this year I spent time doing that, and I feel like I'm mature for my age. I hear that a lot. So here I am going, yeah, I'm mature. I've made it. A little arrogant. And when I was praying to God and just say, okay, what is your intention for me this year? What do you want me to be focused on? What can I expect this year? It was mature. I'm like, really? You sure? Not like blessing or like
Abundance.
Restful abundance, or it was that. And so just reflecting back on the verse that says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I spoke like a child, I reasoned like a child. And when I became a man, I put my childish ways behind me. And just starting to recognize how even today, I might have matured, that I can have some self-awareness, but my life is largely still based on what Grayson wants. What's convenient for Grayson in the moment? What is the easy way? How do I get filled first? And so I believe the invitation is to start asking other questions like, how can I serve? How can I bring my talents to the world? How can I bring impact? And granted, that can't happen if my cup's totally empty, but I can't solely just focus on filling my cup for the rest of my life. I believe I'm called to do more than that. There was like different reactions to that. And I think I'm excited about what that means and scared and just, feeling everything. So my encouragement is that regardless of how old kids are, or how long you've parented, establishing regular times to examine life and to face reality is crucial, regardless of if they're 8 months old or, grown adults. It's a practice I think that people can glean a lot from and even invite. So like my wife and I do that together. My dad's gone through the weekend. I've invited him into part of that process too. It's beautiful.
As we wrap up, the little nugget about your dad also being a Crucible guy, how does that dynamic impact your girls, your marriage, your relationship, and how you choose to parent?
I guess I do know what it's like to have parents who are unaware and who are very difficult, and it is night and day. One of the things that I think that my dad brings, the gold that he brings, is that he has transitioned to just listen. So when I call him and I'm freaking out and just full of everything, he just listens and reflects back and doesn't necessarily give me direct advice unless I ask for it. And I just appreciate that so much, because it's easy to say, this is how we handled it, and you're just doing this, and I know what I'm doing because I raise kids. He gives us permission to do what we believe is best and to fail, and then to be there when we are learning and growing. And so how does that impact the girls? They love being around their grandpa. I mean, they love being around everybody else too, but I, as a dad, feel more at peace. It's a different type of relationship, and I can call them out. So we've certainly practiced that too, where, hey, so you did this and we said, don't do that. So what's that about?
Yeah.
It opens up for full dialogue, which has been life-giving.
Well, and what a gift that you've been given by your dad choosing to go and being open to you giving him feedback and engaging in that conversation, but also what a gift that you're giving to your kids. I've heard it said that the best thing that a parent can do for their child is to be open to being told when they didn't make the mark and just receive that and say, I could parent to the best of my ability. And the reality is I'm going to do something that unintentionally hurts my kid, because my kids all have different personalities and they respond to things differently. So it's not a one size fits all, but being able to build the resilience in yourself, being open to feedback, that creates a different relationship like you're talking about that frankly is just pretty uncommon these days.
Yeah. And to take the pressure off, as just a wrap up thought, there's a book that I love, which is by Dan Allender. That's How Kids Raise Parents. And it's this thought that if I do everything right, my kids are going to turn out great, but that's not true.
Yeah.
We can't guarantee that. The kids are there to teach me about me.
Yeah.
And it's my job to prepare them for the world the best that I can. And it's not solely up to me that my kid turns out to be a great person. And that actually takes a lot of pressure off of me, which I think takes a lot of pressure off of them.
Absolutely. Crucible is applicable to anyone, right? It doesn't matter the phase of life that you're in or the stage that you're in. If you're willing to take a look at yourself and see what parts of you need to work on, there's a space for that. What would you say, though, to the young dad who's listening to this and feeling like he's still walking around with the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he doesn't have the dynamic of a supportive spouse, or he doesn't have the dynamic of a supportive parent, and hasn't been to Crucible yet and doesn't know what to even think at this point? What would you say to him?
The first thing I would say is that regardless of where he's at, he's on time. He's on time. It's easy to get caught up in, I'm behind. How on earth am I going to handle all this? A lot of times with young kids, we're also at frontiers at work with increasing responsibility, or maybe we hate the job that we're in, right? That dynamic. It's easy to feel like we're behind and failing. And so my encouragement, one, be there on time. And two, there is hope. And it requires risk. And this would be an example of taking a step towards hope. It's not going to fix your world, but there is hope that, there's more to it than what you're feeling right now.
Well, thanks for your thoughts, and thanks for joining me today. It's always just a gift to be able to talk to you and get some of the insight that you have. So thanks for being with us and sharing what you know, and look forward to connecting again.
Yeah, me too, Joy. Thanks for having me on.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.